Hello everybody, The here. What you see in front of you is the subject of today's video. No way, The! It's not like you've never said that before. Ha ha ha. Okay, anyway, today we're going to be comparing two iBooks, and you might be saying, well, duh, they're exactly the same. I mean, look at them. They're both white, they both have Apple logos on the top, they're both shining in the light source that's directly above me. Hey, better lighting for once. Anyway, they're both probably from the same year, which I don't think they are. And they both probably suck. Well, you're going to be wrong in most of those cases, actually, because these are two different things. I'll give you a hint. One of them is an iBook G3, and the other one is an iBook G4. Can you tell which is which? I'll give you 3 seconds to decide. If you said this was the iBook G4, you would be correct. This is the iBook G4. And if you said this was the iBook G3, you would be correct. Doesn't say there, but it's the iBook G3. Comparison video, begin. Along the front edge, there's literally nothing special. There's no changes along the front between either of these. Along the back side, there's nothing too different about these. They both have the same lock position, the same battery-ish looking thing. That one's about dead. And yeah. The only difference is this one is missing a lot of the feet, and the only other difference is the position of the logo and the model number. They both take a 24-volt adapter. This one's copyright 2004 with the model number A1054. This one is copy 2002 A10005, or 1005 rather. And the FCC and other certification logos are a bit higher as compared to the other one. If we look along the I/O sides of these, you wouldn't be able to tell them apart. They all have the exact same port layout, literally to a T. Modem, Ethernet, Firewire 400, USB, DisplayPort, and headphones. Literally the exact same over here. Plus a Kensington lock, you can't forget a Kensington lock. And a little vent for the hard drive that doesn't really do much cooling. On this side, the biggest difference between the two is the CD-ROM drive. The G4 has a slot loading CD-ROM drive, while the G3 has a tray loading optical drive. Obviously, after 2002, Apple was like, that's a moving part. Let's kill it. And they introduced this. The DC jacks are completely the same. Along the back ridge, there is another minor difference. The little bar in the center there, which functions as the hinges, is silver on the G3 and is white-ish gray on the G4. Opening the laptops up, we find similarly floppy hinges. I mean, look at that. On the G4, we will find a completely white keyboard, white power button with no transparency. Speakers are exactly the same, and a touchpad that looks exactly the same as the G3. On the G3, we will find that the touchpad assembly looks a little bit more silver than the G4. Probably just a visual effect. Notice that the power button is a little bit transparent, although it does not light up, and the keyboard is completely transparent. Well, translucent in this case, but who's counting? Plugging the machines in and powering them on will reveal two very different start times. Let me demonstrate that now. I have to put the camera down. I don't have 3 hands. Pressing the power buttons. You'll notice that the G3 makes the noise immediately, and the G4 does not make it at all because I turned the sound off at one point. You'll see that they both turn on at about the same time, but seeing as the G4 has a faster processor, gets to the boot up a little bit quicker than the G3 does. Another major thing to note is that the performance of the G4, while having a higher clock rate, will have infinitely, well, not infinitely, quite a bit more performance than the G3 will, seeing as the G4 has an Altivac processing unit in it, and the G3 does not. Have to actually enter the password on that one. These are both running OS 10.4. This one running, the G3 running OS 9 as a sub OS, different one. One of the few, well, many actually, G3s to come with a default installation of OS 9. You can see in the About This Mac section that they are both running OS 10.4.11, while the G4 has a 1.2 GHz PowerPC G4, 1.25 GB of DDR, while the G3 has a 600 MHz PowerPC G3 and 256 MB of SD RAM. So it'll lose out a lot in that sense. If we go into more info, it'll open System Profiler and we'll be able to see the graphics processing units. You can see on the G4 that it is an ATI Mobility Radeon 9200 featuring 1024 by 768 resolution, 32-bit color. Quartz Extreme is supported and has 32 megabytes of video memory, along with an AGP graphics interface. The G3 does not actually list its thing, but it does say here that it is an ATY Rage M6. Yeah, ATY, not ATI. It has 16 megabytes of VRAM, has a maximum resolution of 1024 by 768, which is again similar. 32-bit color, Quartz Extreme is supported. On this one, we can see that the default clock rate for the processor is 183.38, and the memory clock stack is 190.13 through ATI Accelerator 2. Great program, by the way. And on this one, the stock clock rate is 166.15, and the stock memory clock is identical. So, obviously, having a higher clock rate in both categories, as well as being newer, the ATI Mobility Radeon 9200 will beat out the Rage M6. Okay, so I'm going to run Xbench on both of these to get a head-to-head performance comparison between the two. Both of them are at about idle, with the G4 being a little bit more activity than the G3, but they're both sitting around idle, so this should be pretty fair. I'll start both of them at the same time. I have unchecked disk test, as I really don't care about the disk speed, and it takes quite a while with the 4K writes. One, two, three, start. You can see already that the G4 is already into the graphical tests, while the G3 is still on the memory tests. The G3 has just started the graphical tests. The G4 is now onto the OpenGL tests, and now has just moved on to the user interface test, and the G4 is now done. So the G3 just finished. I'm trying to bring this up on the G3 a little bit. Okay, the G4 achieves an overall score of 38.28, while the G3 scores 14.01. Both of these are running Xbench 1.3, so we're not having any inconsistencies there. The CPU test on the G4 got a 57.49 total, and the CPU test on the G3 got a 16.87 total. The G3 did not get a test on the Ultivac because it has no Ultivac. I said that before. The Ultivac on the G4 achieved a 185.79, which is amazing. The scores in Xbench are compared to a G5, so the Ultivac test is always going to be a lot better on a G4, considering the implementation is a lot better. For the thread test, the G4 achieved a 52.64, and the G3 got a 27.08. For the memory test, the G4 achieved an overall 27.27, while the G3 achieved a 6.98. The Quartz graphics test, the G4 achieved a 45.09, while the G3 achieved a 21.77. For the OpenGL graphics test, the G4 achieved 55.07, and the G3 got a 40.32, which is not that far off, surprisingly. And for the user interface test, the G4 got a 23.07, while the G3 scored a lousy 8.47. So those are the Xbench results, and I would say for a fact that performance does reflect that. Just using 10.4 Fox in general on the G4 is a lot faster than it is on the G3, obviously attributed to the double clock speed that the G4 has over the G3, plus the Ultivac that the G4 has as well. Both of these laptops, however, are quite enjoyable to use, being vintage technology at this point. But they still have some utility, even though the MacTubes program that used to work very well on older PowerPC Macs no longer works. And when compared to a G5, is a lot slower, actually. There's no sugarcoating that. So that's about it for this comparison. Thank you for watching. I'm going to shut these both down, do it simultaneously. Alrighty, so thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you later. Thank you guys for watching, and goodbye.